Hey everybody, Objectively Dan here. Apologies for the following quote because it comes from Greg Locke. He said, one of the largest expenses we have is the buildings, the amount of handicap parking and handicapped accessibility that we have in our churches. And then he says, it goes on, I think you just don't have any faith is what I think. Uh, you know, why isn't God healing the disabled then, right? If this is such a big issue for you, either he can't, he doesn't, or he doesn't exist, or doesn't want to, I should say. Can't, doesn't want to, or doesn't exist is what I think is the three things there. So if you don't agree with that, or you think that there's some other explanation, or maybe I'm just trolling, give me a call because the show is starting right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Truth Wanted. I'm Objectively Dan. Joining me this week is J.L. Warren. J.L. Warren, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. How are
Good.
you? You look
brilliant. You know what? I love the intro, and that's like my whole week this week. I'm like having a bad work week. I had to work. I worked Saturday and Sunday, and I worked all this week, and I'm probably going to have to work tomorrow. And I've been losing my mind because capitalism demands blood sacrifice, and I am the sacrifice this week. So that's been me, including flubbing up intros. How are you doing, JL?
Good. I took I actually, because I've been going nonstop for pretty much for like the past 4 years, and I had my with my podcast and with my YouTube channel and all the content I was doing and the traveling around the country I was doing, and I decided I needed a break, and so I kicked off 2024 by taking January off to rest and just kind of recuperate and take some time, take some me time. And of course, I turned around and got sick, and I was out for like the first 3 weeks of the month because I was just down, and then just absolute chaos. But finally, I back up, kicked everything off on February, so hopefully it's gonna be a good 2024. But the year of the dragon is not kicking off too positive yet.
Is it the year of the dragon? Oh man,
it is.
What are the implications of that? Do you know? Because I don't.
I think it depends upon where you sit on the Chinese zodiac. So like where it is in conjunction.
I think I'm a rat on the Chinese zodiac. What does that mean for me?
So I'm not that big into it. I know that I'm year of the monkey. I know. Okay. So I'm year of the monkey. And if you're, I think you're a little bit younger, year of the rat. I think you're the same as my wife. I think she's year of the rat too. But I think if it's a year that's like 12 years past yours, so like every 12 years is supposed to be kind of a negative year, if I remember correctly. Someone out there correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really remember my Chinese zodiac, but hopefully it'll be confined to January. Hopefully.
I haven't talked about Chinese signs on here. I wonder how many people believe in that, like, are super legit. I mean, obviously a lot of Chinese people, right? Probably not too many in the US.
I did every time I went to the buffet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you.
Come on.
Okay. That's pretty. Sorry. Listen. I made a joke to our audio and video producer earlier that I feel kind of bad about. I'm just off right now, guys. I'm off. I'm like, I got to get back on my game here. So let's just get this show going, and let's do what I need to do here. Let's talk about our question of the week here. Last week, we asked you guys, what is a conspiracy theory with very little consequences? So here are some of the answers that we picked for that. We got our top three right here. Number 3 comes from Think A Taz 1851, who says a conspiracy theory with very little consequences. The ant Illuminati hoard of all of the insect engineering knowledge so that no other small animal can build little cities, and that ants can maintain their dominant position in insect society, which is awesome. I love this so much. This is, first of all, the novelty factor is great. I haven't heard this one before. I do like the idea of ants in like cloaks and like just scheming things also, which is really, really cool. So I like that.
I'm trying to imagine a system set up like the Roman Senate, and there's all this backstabbing going on, all of this subterfuge and cloak and dagger shenanigans.
It's like Bugs Life, but with murder. I would watch that. They need to do that.
That officially wins the internet today. You win the internet today. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Well, it's only been it hasn't even been 5 minutes here, so let's see what else I got. Okay, jeez, hopefully don't.
I don't know if
he
could beat like Cloak and Dagger, Ants, Illuminati. I don't know if that could be beat, but bring it on.
Well,
bring it on.
We're only on number 3, so let's get to number 2 here. We got Miranda Ahrensberger. I may have said that wrong. Miranda Ahrensberger 6919, who says a conspiracy theory with very few consequences. J. Mike's beard is actually fake. He puts it on before every show because he's afraid of being recognized and mobbed by paparazzi when he goes outside, which is awesome. I love this idea too, because J. Mike just has a gorgeous, luxurious, thick beard that almost just doesn't look real because of just the way it is. I could totally see this being real. I can confirm that I've seen him off camera in his house, just living his life with the beard. But if this could be real, I could definitely see it. Right.
His beard puts mine to shame. It really does. I fell in love with his beard the moment I saw it. I honestly want him to put stuff in it. I want like Nordic beads, or I want like Celtic Viking beads in there. I want to see him do that. I want to see him decorate that. I really do. I've thought about it, but I don't know if I'm enough. But J. Mike, he's definitely there.
J. Mike could probably do it. Shout outs to J. Mike. Hope he sees the show this week. Number 1 comes from Chuck Gatos 5387, who says, conspiracy theory with little consequence. The first moon landing was real, but they forgot to put film in the cameras. So they really did shoot the footage in a film studio. That worked so well that they shot them all the way. So there you go.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So very elaborate idea there, but again, novel. So I appreciate it for that. But yeah, these are great answers this week, guys. I love this week's answers. So thank you to everybody who contributed to that. The prompt for this week is going to be, what's your unpopular opinion? Okay, so it's going to be spicy, but didn't have to be a spicy unpopular opinion. It doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be, anything like that. Just what's your unpopular opinion? That's all we're going to leave it at. So let me start with this. J.L. Warren, what is your unpopular opinion?
Oh, I have so many unpopular opinions. But I would have to say probably my most unpopular opinion that's gotten me kicked out of a few parties is that Jesus Christ, if he actually existed, it was nothing more than the David Koresh of Iron Age Palestine. You know what?
I've made very similar analogies to Jesus being David Koresh, and I feel like people just I think I've said it before, and you can tell it rubs people the wrong way, but I think I agree with you. I was going to do something different, but no, I'm standing with you on this one. Actually, I do think that's true. If Jesus was around today, he probably would have been acting like David Koresh, straight up. I mean, David Koresh literally walked around saying he was the Son of God, right? Jesus did the same thing. The only thing is one people think one guy is legit. I don't know. Yeah.
You got his little band to follow, made his merry men together, and they wandered around doing their thing, and
had a gunfight with the ATF. I mean, they both did that. There's a lot of similarities between the two of them. But anyway, no, that's I'll stay with you on that one. Give your unpopular opinion below. Again, it doesn't have to be that spicy, but we want to hear what your unpopular opinion is, and we'll read it for next week. Going back to you, JL. JL, you've been on the show actually fairly recently compared to most return guests. It's been how many? Of just a few months.
Just a couple of months.
Yeah. But for those who haven't heard of you or haven't catch that episode, do you want to give a brief intro to who you are and what you're all about?
Sure. For those who just seen me for the first time, my name is J.L. Warren. I run the Bridge the Divide YouTube channel. You can check it out, YouTube/J.L. Warren, where I basically examine irrational beliefs and the irrational behaviors that often follow, and how we can, using rationality, reason, and logic and education, we can bridge the societal divides that those things create. So, like I said, I took January off, but I'm back in February, and that's pretty much what I focus my work on. And I do social activism here in my local state. So dealing with, because I have a passel of crazy I call them, yeah, they're crazy. I'm sorry. I was trying to like use less terminology, but of crazy, Congress people and other people who are trying to pass all kinds of weird stuff. There was like a furry bill recently that is just insane. But nonetheless,
hold on.
You didn't hear
we
about
gotta
this?
talk about the furry bill. Wait, no, I haven't heard about this. Well, finish your intro and then we'll talk about the furry bill. Okay.
But yeah, so I focus on local activism and I try to be a part of the very, very small atheist community where I am up here up north and try to do as much good in the community as I possibly can. So you can find me at my channel and check it out. And I hope you like it. Definitely. But that's what I focus on.
Listen, okay, and hello, you didn't talk about the horror aficionado that is J.L. Warren. First of all, look at that background. Holy freaking crap. Amazing. But also you do some horror stuff. You got your horror,
I do, yes. I have a podcast that I and my filmmaker friends, because I work professionally also as a filmmaker, as a writer and a director and an actor and a voice actor. So, but we started the Week in Horror podcast back in 2019, and we've been running it. We're in our 5th season right now, but we do that every single Wednesday over at the YouTube channel Week in Horror. And you can check us out, Spotify, all the other places where you listen to podcasts. But we basically deep dive horror movies. Undersell
himself, JL. That's that there's a lot of people that would be very interested in asking you questions about, hey, how do they do that thing in that movie that made it look like they killed that guy?
Probably,
right?
Yes.
I could see that as a possible question. Okay, now tell me about this furry bill. What, if anything, if of all people that I know, I feel like I should be the one to be the first to know about the furry bill and tell all my friends.
Didn't know about the furry bill.
You're telling me there's a furry bill?
Well, there was
Oklahoma.
There was a bill that was proposed, and I want to make sure I actually get.
Oh, he's getting
the guy's name.
Getting the details.
Yeah, I want to make sure because I have it saved on my phone. And so we have a number of politicians here in the state of Oklahoma that have been pushing legislation recently that I would say pushes the boundaries of the First Amendment, and they're doing essentially kind of following in the footsteps of Texas's Greg Abbott, where they're basically trying to ensure that they have their bases all set for the upcoming election cycle, for everybody's upcoming election cycles. So it's all about making a big using religion to make a big political show and ensure that people are going to come out and vote for you next time around. But Justin Humphrey, Rep. Justin Humphrey, I'm going to call him out, filed a bill specifically targeting furries. And the point was he wanted to make it illegal for anybody to represent in pretty much in public or in schools. The details of it, it's House Bill 3084. It would ban students who purport to be an imaginary animal or imaginary species who engage in anthropomorphic behavior, commonly referred to as furries, at school and it would ban them from participating in class and school activities.
Wait, what? Wait, how do you even enforce that? You just say, "Oh, I'm a cat," actually, and then you just get banned from school activities. What?
I have no idea how it would enforce that. He's pushing along the lines, and from what I understand, ever since Greg Abbott pushed out that bounty law, where bounty laws have become popular ever since Greg Abbott did it in Texas. Basically, not putting the onus on law enforcement, but putting the onus on your neighbor in order to call out individuals who are violating specific, laws or whatever gets passed, and then being able to sue them and get money for it. So these bounty laws are putting the responsibility on neighbors and basically ramping people up. And where we live in Oklahoma, if you know anything about our state, very low income, very low education rates, very high level, high amounts of just, blue collar work, and very high homeless population. People are desperate for money. People are absolutely desperate for money in the state of Oklahoma, as shown by all of our stats across the nation. And so people will, if these pass, which is just wild. I don't think they will, because they're so blatantly a violation of the First Amendment. But if they were to pass, people are rabid. They'll go after it. That's why it's somewhat concerning, because because the people here were deeply red, and so that's what makes it kind of scary.
Well, just a reminder, this is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a nonprofit 501c3. So we cannot endorse specific bills or any candidates or things like that. But in my personal opinion, maybe furry should be left alone. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, speaking of which, this is a 501c3 and a call-in show that you should definitely call into, because we have some open lines right now. It's at 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. So you should check it out and give us a call, because we do have a couple of open lines right now that we can get you in. That was way different from what I wanted to talk about at the beginning of this, but wow, I can't get over that. It's the day has finally come. If you used to be like an internet dude, if you were on the internet like 10 years ago, longer than that, 15, 20 years ago, furries were like the barrel of a lot of jokes. And there was like a whole joke of like furry persecution, which was kind of real. Almost like a lot of people were hating on furries back in the day. And I think people just don't care now. It's just wild that finally now there's a thing about it. I don't know. I can't get over that.
I think it was because of there. I think it all stemmed up with in my opinion. I could be wrong on this, but from what I gather, there was that internet rumor that was running around about the kid
that had the cat litter at the school.
Yes. And then right wing Christian conservative politicians jumped on that as if it was a real thing. It took like 10 minutes to figure out that story was false and it never happened, but they've run on it. And now all of a sudden, because I can't remember her name, but I think it was down in Georgia, the chick who wanted to get rid of the Georgia Guidestones, who kind of initiated that. I can't remember her name for the life of me. But nonetheless, she really took that and ran with it. And that kind of inspired other politicians to jump on that bandwagon and use that to kind of attack counterculture or subcultures that they don't like or they don't understand. So, which is essentially what this is. Yeah.
I forgot about the anti-Georgia Guidestone legislation. I love that the politicians in our country are really focusing on the issues that matter, like fucking furries and the Georgia Guidestones.
I'm so bummed. I was planning to go and see the Guidestones. I was planning to see them in 2024, and it was going to be one of my trips. I actually have a couple of trips planned, and unfortunately, last year, somebody. Candace Taylor, thank you very much. It was Candace Taylor, but unfortunately, someone in an act of vandalism, got rid of them.
They messed them up.
Yeah,
I know, it's so sad. That's like weird stuff like that should not be feared. We should keep that around and be like, who put the time into this?
It's so weird, really weird. And John Oliver did a segment on where he did where they tracked down the backstory of this thing, and the backstory is actually really sorted. If you haven't checked it out, I don't want to divulge it. You can go and check it out, but I thought it would have been cool to go see that, at least see it, have pictures of it. But I never got to visit that monument.
That's one less reason for me to go to Georgia, as if I didn't have. I already had like -2 reasons. Now I have like -3. So I don't know what's up with that. But that's really sad. If the Georgia Guidestones are ever repaired or whatever, you and I should go, JL. I'll go with you. I've always wanted to see it, but
if somebody resurrects them, if somebody rebuilds those bad boys in the middle of nowhere, wherever, I don't care what state.
You know what? We need a monument to the Georgia Guidestones, I think.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Yes, and it's just an exact copy, and it says the exact words,
and that will
except even more sinister. That'd be awesome.
And it will go perfect, because my other trip is I plan on visiting all of the Devil's Chairs in America. So I have a road trip planned where I'm going to visit the Devil's Chairs in America, and that could be a stop on the way. I think that would be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a good time. I'm very jealous of that. But yeah, that's really sad. I forgot that the Georgia Guidestones were violated now, and that's throwing me off too. Man, Jeff, you came in hot here. We didn't even get to my topic. We just spent it talking about the interesting things that you've been looking into, which is great. I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
Well, what did you have? What did you have? Let's
okay. So the thing I had, so I talked about this. If you see my other shows at Dan's, I talked about this a little bit, but I did a deep dive on an app called Hallow. Have you heard of this app?
Yes. Okay. Mark Wahlberg's new financial.
Wahlberg, paid spokesperson for the app Hallow, is really, really bizarre because it is a Catholic prayer app that got into the top 10 apps last year.
Yeah.
and is literally created by a guy named Alex Jones, who is not the same Alex Jones, no relation. Got like over $40 million in investment to like it's just Calm. It's just like, if you ever seen the very popular meditation app Calm, it's just Calm for Catholics, which like I'm not against that in spirit, I guess, but like they got some weird stuff on there. like definitely some anti-abortion folks, definitely the term that I learned recently, which is chastity influencers that are advertising content for them. I've been in this thing for a few years now, and I've never heard the words chastity influencer. I know I was aware of the concept, but I never called it that. So that's a new thing I learned recently. So I do have this Vice article that I wanted to kind of look at and maybe talk a little bit, but that's really the highlights of this app. It's just it's some guided meditations and also some other stuff that you can find in some other places. Like, you know, there's do the Bible in the year, you know, like there's one audio thing you can listen to every day, so you can read the whole Bible in a year. You can also do the catechism in a year, which sounds like the most boring thing you could possibly spend time doing in like a year. I don't know who in their right minds would want to do that, but I guess obviously some people do, because they have got like 40 million downloads. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird byproduct of our society. And Mark Wahlberg's in it.
Yeah, it was a hard press. Yeah, it was a hard press across social media. I saw it, you know, because through all the stuff,
not only advertising for it, he has guided prayers. You can do a prayer with Mark Wahlberg,
and then go get a Wahlburger afterwards.
Exactly.
But I don't know. Okay, I have a very, very strong opinion when it comes to what's currently going on in, like, what's going on right now in the United States. And a lot of people got angry or got upset with me because I linked this back to when Trump took office. I don't think it's a lie to say that when Trump took office in the United States back in, oh God, it was so long ago, 2020. So 2016, when he took office back in 2016, he gave a voice to an extreme right-wing Christian nationalist subculture here in the United States. And they took it and ran with it. And because we are a capitalist nation, you mentioned it yourself, because we are a capitalistic nation, anything you can sell, you can make. If you can make money off of it, make money off of it. And so we have seen a rise in individuals who have now weaponized religious ideology, whether it be Christianity or Protestantism or whatever, but have weaponized their religion in order to make money. And I think Hallow is a tool in order to just make people rich, in order to, and it's no different than any other one. Like you have the series, we've seen an uptick in films produced by PureFlix. We've seen an uptick in actors coming out and being huge about their faith. I recently critiqued Alan Richson on my channel because of some really terrible statements that he made, because he doesn't understand what he's talking about. And then we've got, oops, I hit my mic. And then we've got Mark Wahlberg doing this. And I know that Jim Caviezel's attached to it as well, and his QAnon nonsense. And then because this group, this subculture has gotten so much traction, of course you're going to see efforts to make money off of it. I mean, what this nation is essentially built on is what can you sell, what's popular.
What you're saying, JL, is that Donald Trump walked so that Jim Caviezel could run. And I think you're 100% right. like no, he unlocked the market, right? He really like tapped into that. I don't even think he fully intentionally did it. I think he just kind of did it on his own. I think his presence just kind of, I don't know. I mean, obviously some of it is like he talks to people, but then you hear stuff he says behind the scenes, and it's just like, I think this is just him. Right. Anyway, it's ridiculous. So yeah, no, this app is promoted by very problematic people, has problematic people in it. I wouldn't recommend getting the full, because you have to pay for it to, outside the free trial. Don't, that's, you do what you want with your money, but hey, maybe this isn't the way to do it. Not that anybody on the show would be interested in it. I'm just saying, like, even if you were like, oh, I want to check this out, they do, throw the, hey, you got to pay for this eventually at your really hard.
It's the perfect revenue stream. You look at it, Mark Wahlberg, and he can do it all from his house. And of course, he's going to get every big name that's attached to it. Every Christian nationalist going to get who's spouting whatever fringe ideology.
Now it's only for Catholics. Now,
oh yeah, that's true. Okay, but you can attach so much to that ideology. You really can. And that's why you said like the chastity influencers is a step off of, like that. But they basically get to sit at their homes and they get to do kind of what we do. They're here in their computers doing their thing, and they get cut a paycheck. So of whatever money's rolling in from that, it's literally the easiest stream whatsoever. It's the easiest revenue stream if there's a slump, because Christian movies, despite their rise in popularity, don't make a lot of money. That group that eats those up is simply too small. And once streaming, because the vast majority of them go to streaming, you got to watch that thing like 10, 15 times or to make something, people watch it once and then they move on. So they got to get that revenue going. If you're going to if Mark Wahlberg's going to choose to do Christian movies and push that kind of, ideology in his films, fine, that's his choice. But he's going to need to shore up that income in order, to maintain his other endeavors. And what better way than to sit in front of your computer and rake in a paycheck while going, "Hi, Mark Wahlberg, let's pray today." And then
let's pray today.
You're selling a thing. There's no product. You're just selling someone their own ideology
back
to them.
Guided meditation is a product, JL. A product that's at least worth the $50 million seed money. So I don't know, but no, I hear your point though, right? Yeah, no, absolutely. If
selling their validation back to them, I am perplexed. I am just bamboozled. It's insane how huge that market is. The market is to sell people's validation back to them.
I will say this: the app itself, from what I can tell, there's not a lot of political content within it. It's like rosary prayers and sermons and some other stuff, but like nothing from what I did a very cursory look through. There's probably some stuff. I mean, there's hours and hours of audio to go through it all. I wouldn't be able to
give it a year. Give it a year. It's going to look like Twitter.
You know what? You're probably right. If they just like get a whole bunch of people on, oh man, it could get worse.
It will. I mean, come on. Look what happened to MySpace. Right. Look what happened to Facebook. Look what happened to Twitter.
I'm in the wrong business. Atheist YouTube is dead. I should become a chastity influencer. I would love to just tell people stop having sex, and then that's it. That's your upload. What else you got to say? I don't know. I guess you got to quote the Bible too, but that's funny. I don't know. Just the idea that's hilarious. But yeah, no.
I could just see you. I could just see you. A Heavenly Father, don't touch your peen.
Stop fucking right now. Hey, don't go there. I see you searching. I see you opening up that other window. All right, don't do it. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, maybe April Fool's Day stream. I'll just become a chastity influencer. Although a whole stream about that, I don't know. That's a lot of saying the same thing over and over again. I'm sure they talk about other stuff, but I do like that their defining trait, at least in this Vice News article that I read, was chastity influencer. So weird.
Anyway, that's pretty much what we do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in preparation for February, I've addressed the argument for morality. It's just it's like so hot right now, and it's like every other video is objective morality, and so it's essentially what we do. We do this. It's the same arguments over and over and over and over again. So
I get a lot of people that assume that I believe in objective morality because my name is Objectively Dan, and in retrospect, I probably would have changed that, but that does come up pretty frequently. But speaking of arguments, maybe we should talk to some people on the phone. What do you think, JL?
Let's do it. Bring him on.
Okay, cool. But before we do that, we have to thank the patron of the week, because every single week we always want to get a shout out to the folks on Patreon. Thank you to everybody that donates on the Patreon. You guys help make this show happen. As I mentioned before, I have a full-time job outside of this. I am a volunteer here. And this money goes towards the atheist community of Austin. And it kind of tells them, hey, Truth Wanted is a show that's worth supporting. So thank you to everybody that donates. But this week's patron of the week is going to be McDishrag. Thank you so much, McDishrag. And thank you to everybody. You guys rock. And with that out of the way, let's talk to some people on the phone. Let's get to our first caller here. We have Jesse from New Jersey. Now, Jesse, you and I actually spoke last week, and we had an email conversation since then, and now you're back here on the phone lines with me. What's going on, Jesse?
Yes. Hey, JL, what's up?
How's it going?
I just want to get some resolution about last week's call. I was put off by what you said about me Googling my question. I feel like most people who call in here can just Google their questions. I don't know. I could be wrong. A couple of YouTube commenters said that the show wasn't about research, which I think is missing the point entirely. It's about discussion. And I felt that someone having enough adrenaline to lift a car off of someone was a good topic to discuss, which obviously it was, given what you and Jamie had to say about it. I mean, I think we both learned a lot from it.
Yeah. So
what you had to say about it.
Well, so you know what, and in retrospect, I was having an off week last week too, which is not great because I'm feeling off today, and I was definitely off last Friday. So sometimes I don't always give the best response on the fly. I've been hosting now for over 5 years. There's hours of me talking, and that's just on Truth Wanted. That's not even including Talk Heathen or any of the other projects that I've been a part of. And eventually you say something that you kind of regret, or you wish that you said something differently, right? So I do wish I didn't say, hey, I'm surprised you didn't just Google this. Because you know what? Maybe that was a little bit of a snarky thing to say, and I didn't mean it to be that way, but it just kind of happened. So Jesse, I'm sorry I made you feel I don't know. Sorry if you didn't feel like it was a good conversation because of that comment. It absolutely was a good conversation, and I appreciate everybody that calls into the show because you're giving content for Truth Wanted. I want to talk to people. That is kind of the whole point. So I do appreciate you calling back so that we could talk about it again. And yeah, I do hold myself to a pretty high standard when it comes to making callers feel like that they're in a space where they can be themselves and feel like that they're heard, regardless of their backgrounds. I really want to apply the principle of testing ideas and not people. Right. So, I hope you accept that apology.
Oh, definitely. We all make mistakes, and that's fine. I mean, I appreciate your owning that. I really do. And you got a patron out of the call.
Oh, really? Well, thank you so much, Jesse. Appreciate that. Well, that's really nice. Thank you, really.
Yeah, I love this show. I've been watching since day one. So, and I'm sorry you had such a rough work week this week as well. So,
you know what? I thank you. I appreciate you saying that. No, I just, I need to put my best face on because it's not about me. It's about doing the show. So, I need to stop talking about myself and my personal issues because it's not about that. So this will be the last time I mention me having a shitty work week, and I'll leave it at that. So thank you again, though, Jesse.
You're very welcome, Dan. I appreciate it.
Great. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that's it.
All right. I'm glad we could work that out, Jesse. I appreciate you emailing me and us having our conversation today. So I really hope you do well. And I'll go ahead and let you go now. But thanks so much for donating to the Patreon as well. That is very kind of you.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, again, thank you to everybody that donates on the Patreon. That really does show the ACA, like, okay, how are the shows doing? Who's interested in doing what, right? And like, I want Truth Wanted to be the premier place, right? I want it to be the best show on the network. I'm the most invested in it. Also, I do Talk Heathen, but Truth Wanted's kind of my baby. So like I care about it a lot. So thank you guys really for donating to it. It means a lot there. Sorry, Jay, you couldn't really join in on that conversation, but
it's quite all right. And awesome. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Jesse, thank you so much. I appreciate for you're on this side. Yeah. For subjectively Dan there. So that was awesome.
Never gets old. Never gets old. Real quick, that was a real short one, so I'm just gonna jump to the next call here, and then I might do an announcement or two after that. But I want to jump to Kit, who is calling in from New York. Kit, you have an interesting take from what my call screener says. You think that we should protect the idea that we should have free will at all costs, whether we have it or not. So I think that's an interesting take. Kit, tell me more about that.
Absolument, I most certainly shall, my good objectively Daniel.
All right. Very good, sir. Please.
I've got a lot of enthusiasm in me, buddy.
Yeah, no, I gotta pump up my game here too. My enthusiasm game.
Pump up your
Absolutely.
game. This is gonna be the sauce, Daniel. This is gonna be the sauce.
Okay. I'll be honest. I don't think anybody's called me objectively Daniel, and it's really killing the vibe for me right now. That is like a weird.
I'm sorry. Hey, what? I'm telling you, I'm going to give you the philosophical free will sauce, and you can't drive yourself up, even though I'm calling you objectively Daniel.
Yes, how can I not be more turned on than a caller telling me about how free will is a necessity that we should be protecting at all costs? Yes, absolutely, Kit. I mean, I am just aroused.
Well, 100%. Don't tell me you're turned on. You're going to make me think you're hitting.
I didn't say. Well, turned on in the sense of excited is what I mean. I
thought you were going to become the head guru of Chastinianness. I'm like, now you're talking about turning people.
I'm going to advise that you use your free will and I use my free will to continue on with this conversation. I think that's what I want to use.
Kidding you. No, I'm just kidding you. I had a little bit of a smoke of a rare plant that doesn't grow in this nation anymore for odd reasons. So I'm just a little, Anyway, but here's the thing. Our idea of free will should be protected at all costs because free will is connected to the idea of self-autonomy. And for example, like, how can someone decide to do anything or nothing, or how can someone say no or yes to anything if they don't have free will? Like, the yes implies will and the freedom of it, and the saying of the no implies will and not the lack of it. Like, no means no and yes means yes, and you can't, and then it's connected to the idea of how it's connected to the idea of self-autonomy. Like, we don't have a will. Like, and the other point that I want to bring out in this is that if we didn't have free will, we would be a danger to society, because what would keep us from picking up a shovel and beating somebody in the head with it?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on this, but I don't know, JL, do you want to start off this conversation?
Yeah,
I see you stroking that beard. And
there's
some wisdom in between those lips. So let's hear it.
So Kit, the big question that I have is that when you're talking about free will, so the ability to choose an action, or the ability to choose to commit an action without external impediment, which means that nothing pushing you or pulling you towards a particular direction. Now, my question is that when you say that we have free will, I want to ask you a question first to try and parse this out a little bit. And the question is,
absolutely,
when you make a decision, when you make a choice to do an action, is that action not informed by a great deal of prior past information in your life?
Absolutely. You got to say it. Nature and nurture. Nature
and
nurture. A little bit of
okay, so there's a great deal of prior information that affects the probability of whatever a particular choice might be. Now, you can choose to do as you want, and nobody's stopping you. There's no impediment. I could choose to do A, I could choose to do B, or I can choose in the morning I could have an apple or an orange. But there's nothing dictating what it must be. But there is prior information. So there is a deterministic aspect to our choices. Okay, so that's why I'm on the fence when it comes to like free will. Like, do we have absolute free will? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Is it absolutely deterministic? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I'm kind of like in the Christopher Hitchens camp on that, where we have free will because we have no choice to, right? So kind of fall in that camp. So now that we have an idea as to like free will and determinism, so my curiosity is, these are concepts that we kind of apply in order to back up our personal autonomy. So how do you mean we want to protect it? Can you parse that out for us?
Definitely, I absolutely can. First, I'd like to say to Dan, is there anything on Warren's comment that you'd like to maybe jump in about before I kind of jump in? And
I have my thoughts, but you go ahead, Kit. Appreciate it though.
okay, yeah, Warren, Mr. Warren, sir. What I mean about guarding self-autonomy, I mean it especially in the legal realm. Because, for example, like obviously you know the turmoil that what we're going through with abortion laws and termination laws and rights and pro-choice rights in this country at the moment and in other countries. So, which we also need to be concerned about. We need to be, but that's neither here nor there. But like just in the courtrooms, for that reason, because if we don't have free will, the woman that wants to get the abortion, well, we need to protect the life of the womb, the life inside the womb, or the fetus inside the womb. You don't have any free will, so we'll just come in and say that life needs to be protected more than yours.
Okay, so what I'm gathering, so what I'm gathering is that it's not so. Yeah, what I'm gathering is that it's not so much about free will; it's about personal autonomy. Is that you believe that we need better laws on the books at both probably a federal and a state level to protect the personal autonomy of the individuals in this nation, correct?
Yes. Like, for example, like if I was to put it out even slightly further, I would say that it's not so much, and I think I went a little overboard in my stating that, like, I think you guys maybe perceive that I think we have free will. I think the idea and concept of free will from a neurological perspective, like I've heard Shannon Q say the science is pretty much out that we don't, but from a neurological perspective, even I think I could argue that we do, but like that's neither here nor there at the moment, maybe for another later show or something. But like just from a legal and philosophical perspective, that it needs to be protected. Like, I'm not sure if we have libertarian free will, probably not, but do we have some free will to a degree? Maybe so, but I don't think that matters literally, but more philosophically, ethically, and morally, and in business as it comes to ethics and more.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying here, kids. Free will, as most people understand it, is actually really most people don't understand it, is the problem. I think people have a very different idea from what free will means when philosophers talk about free will, right? So figuring out what free will even actually is actually a problem within philosophy itself. There's actually multiple competing different ideas about what free will even actually is. And even if it's a coherent concept, I'm not even in the camp of believing that free will is even a coherent concept. But what you've mentioned is something that a lot of people have talked about. So the implication of our legal system, right, is that you had the choice to do something else, but you chose to do the thing that was against the law. And so therefore we are punishing you for doing this, right? If a computer commits a crime, we wouldn't put it in jail because it's not going to do anything for it, right? There's no punishment to be had. There's no being that's, suffering because of it, I guess, right? Or is at least going to change their minds if you believe in a rehabilitative idea of justice, which a lot of people in the United States don't, but a lot of countries do, right? So that sort of legal process isn't actually going to make or change things. The thing is, though, even if free will doesn't exist, which I happen to believe in most identifications of that term, it doesn't, the legal system is still a threat to me, right? Because I could go to jail for doing things, and that threat is making me decide not to do the thing, right? So we could just all be computers, but computers take inputs and do outputs with that. My input is I don't want to go to jail, so I'm not going to do the illegal thing. And that's enough for a lot of people, honestly. The morality of the thing really...
Hello?
And I think that's what makes our legal system as compelling as it is. And I say compelling, I mean as dire, because the consequences of doing that action is going to be really bad compared to a lot of other countries even. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, I can still follow the law and still uphold a sense of right and wrong and some justification and still choose to do things, even if I don't believe in free will, because I think that's how my biological system is reacting to my environment.
Right. I will say I did seem to make, in the long and short things, I did make my argument for the idea and concept that we do in fact have free will. And I'm sorry if that threw you gentlemen off.
No, I get it. No, I totally get what you're saying, Kit. You're saying even if free will doesn't exist for legal purposes, it has to exist in order for prevention purposes or for in order for our system to even make sense, it has to exist, because otherwise, as you put it, people would be murdering people. But again, if free will could not exist right now and people are still going to go to jail or going to avoid going to jail by avoiding doing crimes, right? Like I don't think that has to be a necessity in order for the system to do what it needs to do.
I don't 100% agree, Dan. 100% agree.
Yeah.
There's no difference there. Hey, you think for the most intensive part when it comes to free will, personally, that it doesn't matter. We don't have it, and it doesn't matter either way. And I agree with you there on both points. And you agree with me when I say yes, but on the books it must, and in the courts we must act as though we do. And in society, we should act pleasant with each other, and we need to continue delving in deeps on the subject of why some people act so brutally with one another, I think, and why some people really can't act right within the realm of regular society.
Yeah. Okay. So here's where I think what I'm saying might not be catch what you're saying. You summarized pretty much everything so far, except for one part here, which is, again, I don't think the legal system can work. I think the legal system can still work as intended without a concept of free will. And why I think that is because
I heard that.
Okay.
That objectively, Dan.
Well, but you're saying you don't think it can, though, right? Like you're saying we have to have that concept.
I think the law can, but it's because that I believe that we have a certain degree of free will. I would say somehow in the mix, in our thinker-mabobbers, and somehow with the way the chemicals go to our blood, in our thinker-mabobbers, in our craniums called the skull, and somehow with the chemicals that go to our blood pump that make us feel feelings, like somehow the concept of free will works in and says, I'm in a prison cell because I killed someone. Maybe this ain't so great anymore. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer said he found Christ and repented. But, who knows? Did he really feel remorse? Like, if he did, gee whiz, why do it in the first place? That begs the question.
But okay. Even if, let's say that's true, though, right? I'm sorry to interrupt you here, Kit, but let's say that's true. Let's say that Jeffrey Dahmer, first of all, I don't think the American prison system is helpful for most of the people that are in it. By and large, but let's say we do live in a world where it does, okay, and let's say it's supposed to be working that way. That's just one a biological system. That's what people are. We're biological systems going into an environment and getting inputs from that environment and changing from that environment, right? And becoming something else, right? Your PlayStation can play Fortnite and it can also play Forza. Because it's got different things put into it, but it's still the same PlayStation. There's no free will that's involved in that, but it could still do different things because different things are being put into it. There's no need for free will in any of this. There's a lot of people like even you just said earlier, Kid, like, people would be murdering in the streets if they thought free will wasn't a thing. But I just don't think that's true. I think that these causal inputs are going to be affecting us regardless.
I can't remember if I said that people would just be murdering in the streets or how I framed that, but if I've said those exact words, I apologize. That's not my thoughts. You have to ask, why are people murdering in the streets? Like, if we just say no one has free will and they're a sociopath, like, to a certain degree, I would say, like, even I could prove maybe from a neurological with the complexity of our central nervous system and how that works.
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk to Shannon Q maybe one day when she's on the show. But like,
if you want my perspective, then I want JL to chime in here. But yeah, if you want my perspective, Kit, yeah, I do think some people are just some people are born sociopaths and psychopaths. And first of all, not all psychopaths commit crimes, right? A lot of psychopaths live in society and deal with the cards that they're dealt with, right? And just live their lives. But yeah, I do think your biology may make you like, just like how some people are going to be more easily influenced by alcohol, right? And have trouble maintaining a healthy relationship with that. There are some people that are going to have unhealthy relationships with particular criminal behaviors that are going to, affect them. And that sucks because our system is not kind towards those people.
No,
even though they need help more than anybody else in dealing with that. Right. Because if you're born a psychopath, if you have psychopathy, there's no cure for that. You get aid and you manage that. But just like any other kind of mental illness, right? You have to just deal with it. It's not just like a thing that goes away. We can't just pretend like these people don't exist, because they do. But anyway.
Oh, I don't pretend like they don't exist.
Yeah.
I think they need help. And I think we can discover, I think the reason for psychopathy and sociopathy is hormonal more than just anything else in the body. I think they get a whiff of someone's pheromones and they want to go crazy and fall violent. But
I'm not an expert.
I don't want. I
don't know.
There's Kit. There's a lot of definitely look into it. Definitely do more research into this. And I would say, I'm doing a lot. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why people do the various things that they do, and a lot of the tragedies that occur between people. If we're specifically talking about murder, then I mean, there's a million different ways to individuals justify their actions, whether it's in the moment or whether it's accidental or whether it was intentional. Yeah, but it all comes down to how they justify it. Now, the system to go back to kind of like the center of the call, the system that we currently have in place is predicated on people having free will. Because if everything was determined, if this was a deterministic, absolutely deterministic universe, we don't currently have a way to like know that. Is like, how could what methodology could we use to figure out that, yes, everything is just determined. Everything you do is already been planned and is already going to happen. So if somebody commits a violent act, they were always going to commit that violent act. So there's no way for us to determine that. So you can get into the question of whether or not we could blame them for an action that they were predetermined to do, but because we can't determine that, because we don't have access to that, we have to act like everyone has free will and the ability to choose. Now, we understand that a lot of preconditions or mitigating circumstances go into, or extenuating circumstances go into, why a person justifies a particular action. And so our criminal system is predicated upon the consequences of the action. You commit an action, there are consequences, and based upon the severity of the consequences, that is what the punishment is meted out to you. Now, I agree with Dan wholeheartedly that the prison system that we have in the United States is focused more on recidivism than it is on rehabilitation, which is something that seriously needs to be overhauled. But I don't think when it comes to your call, I don't think when it comes to the nature of it, when it comes to the subject of your call, I don't think we can operate any other way. Like, the system that we have must start with people have the ability to choose. So there's no real legislation that we could put on the books that could secure that, because we can't determine that it's any other way other than what we currently perceive. So there's nothing we can do to protect it. All we can do is pass more legislation to ensure that people's rights, their ability to choose, is not constricted in any way, or is not curtailed in enormous ways. So like I said before at the beginning, we need better legislation to protect autonomy and not so much free will, because free will gets a little complicated, but personal autonomy, I think pretty much people generally understand that. So I agree with you on that we do need better legislation to protect personal autonomy. Bringing the free will argument into it makes it a little bit murkier, and it's going to like throw things off. But given that, we can't really act in a different way. So what are you proposing in that sense, that just that we need better laws to protect personal autonomy? Is that where your kind of mind is at?
Yes. I'm proposing exactly what you're proposing, because I'd
Okay.
like to hit on a big point that you just made. You said free will, protecting laws and making laws that protect free will get a little murky. And why is that? Because if someone has a will to murder, well, guess what? We can't punish them for it, because that's just in their nature, and that's just their free will about it, and they don't have another way to choose, so we can't do anything about it. So where are we going to put them now? What are we going to do to them? Do the death penalty? I think that was ancient, that we should do and done away with that a long time ago. But, I mean, I agree in protecting self-autonomy and the right to choose, because if we teach people the right choices to make, maybe they won't make the wrong choice, like murder people or treat people impolitely. Informed decision.
Yeah.
That goes into a bigger topic, into our infrastructure and ensuring that we have money going into the areas that we need it to go into and not paying for things that we don't need. I firmly believe that mental health in this nation needs a huge boost. There's a number of things: education, mental health, hospital resources, so many things, prison reform. But yeah, I agree with you on that. I absolutely do. That we need laws, better laws, to protect people, protect people's ability to choose what to do, especially when it comes to their own bodies or their own lives. So we do need that. How those would be articulated is for politicians to hash out. I am not a politician, or a legislator. So that's for someone else to hash out. But I agree with you on that we do need that to protect people, and better systems to support the individuals who are unable to make more positive choices.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, sir, Mr. Warren, sir. If I was talking over you, there was a little bit lag on my end, so I do apologize for that. But you are a very intelligent gentleman. You are a very intelligent, brilliant gentleman. And if you ever sought a career in constitutional law, I think you would probably, or politics, I think you would probably go very extremely far. And probably you as well, definitely, Dan. You'd be like the funny politician that everyone made fun of, but kind of agreed with.
Could you see Dan and I on the city council?
Ooh, the
could
Dan
you see it was like,
Warren ticket.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Okay, that's just beyond weird, because my father's name is Dan. So
oh no.
So, but I was just like, now I'm thinking about it, you just see us at the city council meeting, just back and forth, just
yeah. I'll tell you what, Kit, I appreciate the compliment. I'm not sure how much of that is affected by the previously mentioned substance that shall not be named or not, but I'll take the compliment nonetheless. And I think we'll go ahead and end things here, because we do got some other calls we want to talk to you, but very polite and very nice conversation. I truly enjoyed that. Kit, thank you so much for calling in, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Yeah.
Take care, Kit.
There's so much more I could say. Just to summarize, right? I do think, even if our system, I believe we're the result of causal systems, right? So even if we are deterministic, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that our systems as they exist shouldn't exist, because the systems, I think, are part of the causes, right? The fact that the justice system exists literally does prevent people from doing certain things just because it's there. I think that's got to be an important element of it. And of course, we talked about people who suffer with various mental struggles, right? There, even if we had the greatest prisons, even if we had the same kind of prison system here that we did in some of the most reformed prison systems in the world, we don't have the medical technology to help everybody in the way that we possibly could. So that's something to consider in that conversation as well, is that even if we expanded upon, all the resources available to people, there may not be a way to solve that either, or to help people in what we would want for society. But yeah.
The only thing I've ever imagined in my, the way I've looked it out is it takes money. Money has to come from somewhere, and it has to go somewhere. And if you have more money going in this direction and you need it to go over here for the benefit of your population, that's what needs to happen. And I've always been, I mean, I'm not alone in this, but I'm a huge proponent of cutting defense spending. Defense spending. I've always been a huge proponent of that. That is a giant coffer that doesn't need to be that big. And so I've always said 5%. 10%, 12%, scoop that out of there and put it directly into infrastructure, into our hospitals, into our schools, into our mental health institutions, into prison reform, put it all into that, and to our roads, to our bridges, to everything, and put it into infrastructure. That's where that money needs to go. But that's just my opinion. That's my opinion on that.
That's the opinion of constitutional lawyer J.L. Warren, running for president here. This is the platform where he has just announced his takes, his issues. He's for prison reform, against defense spending.
If an atheist could be voted in, if it could, I honestly don't know. That is something I would like to see change, at least in my lifetime. I would like to see in my lifetime. I'd like to see an atheist get voted into office. I really
into president,
into any office, to win an election.
There are definitely some atheists in office in different places.
Open atheist, in
the United States. Well, I mean, there is a humanist congressman in California, and Obama was like kind of not Christian in a lot of ways. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But
okay, could someone like me get voted into the strong atheist that I am?
No, there's no hope for us. I realized that as soon as I got my septum piercing a month ago. I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to be president now. Nobody's going to like that. But
you just tuck it up.
You just tuck it up. But I also have like 5 years of me saying words like fuck and probably other heinous things. So
true.
Yeah, it's too late for me now, but that's okay. I didn't want
We're lost causes. We're lost causes politically. We can't do it
now. But your constitutional lawyer career is still, I think, a viable. I think the sketchier you are, the more likely you can become a constitutional lawyer. I think that's how that works. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. Anyway, before we move on, I have a quick announcement I need to make regarding some stuff. First thing is to become a channel member. If you want to do that, you hit the join button below the video, and it gets you access to special chat emojis and early access to some YouTube shorts and clips, which is something that we want to try to plug more now that we have clips and are posting them all the time. Our clips have done pretty well in places like TikTok and stuff. We appreciate it for you guys who are liking and sharing some of that stuff. There is also a Facebook group that's run by fans and for fans. So you can go to tiny.cc/FBTWG for that. Interact with all kinds of folks who come across this show. Last but not least, I need to thank the awesome, amazing crew that helped make this show happen each and every week. We're going to that crew cam right now. Look at all the folks who help make this thing. It's a lot of work that goes into it, not just in the live show, but also in the post-production and in all of the pre-production. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. So thank you to everybody that works on the show. You guys are awesome. So with that done, let's talk to an actual Daniel here. That's not objectively Daniel. That really threw me off. I don't think anyone's ever called me objectively Daniel. That's I still think about that one. Daniel from Canada is calling in and has a great question for JL. I think Daniel, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Not much. I wanted to talk about aliens and stuff. Something I want to talk about because I recently talked to Forrest. I went on Forrest's show.
Oh.
And I just want a little horror movie trivia. I want to talk with JL about first.
Shoot, yeah, absolutely, go for it. What do you got?
JL, I think one of the greatest horror movies ever made was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Tobe Hooper in the 70s. And have you guys ever realized that movie can be seen as an animal rights movie?
Yes, 100%. The imagery depicted in the movie was supposed to parallel that of slaughterhouses. Is what I know about that movie. So I don't know if he's like a vegan, but it could definitely be seen as an animal rights movie. Yeah, that's definitely been wrote about before.
Yeah, to me,
See, it's
like,
interesting.
a
It's
group
it's
of
interesting that you bring this up. It's interesting that you bring up the animal rights notion, and yes, that imagery does lend itself to that. I can tell you, when Tobe Hooper was making that movie back in '73 and '74, when he was down in Texas, and Tobe Hooper was basically the pre-production on that movie was absolutely insane, and the shoot itself was absolutely brutal. And so, in order to convey what was happening on the film, because Toby didn't have the money to do real extreme, gore effects and extreme blood effects, which is why you don't see a lot of that in the original TCM. Surprisingly, a lack of like goriness or like bloodletting for a movie so extreme in its nature. And the reason for that, the slaughterhouse images and the animal everything that you saw in that was in order to ramp up the tension, and because that stuff was easier to get for the production than it was to try and do special effects for special makeup effects. So it was actually an aesthetic choice, or it was an aesthetic choice made for budgetary purposes. The reason why Hooper did that, because he was so strapped for cash when he made that film, because he after casting and doing everything. So he's talked about it at length, and I've spoken with him as well back before he passed away about the making of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And from what I've gathered, and I've heard it before, the animal rights kind of like imagery there was something that was kind of tacked on after the fact, and that they just kind of ran with it. But Toby never intended for that to be the message. It's very, very similar because Toby, in his own words, equated that to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead being a commentary on racism in the nation. Whereas you have a black protagonist who, at the end, after trying to save everybody's lives and being the most competent person on screen, then gets axed out at the end of the movie, by the incompetent police. So everybody took that as a social commentary. When Romero says that it absolutely wasn't, he wanted it to end on a down ending, and that was the best way to do that. And so, there's these things that get tacked on to films based upon the things we've seen, based on what's popular in culture right now. And I know that animal rights and vegetarianism, veganism, these are important topics right now. And I know that people have glommed onto that imagery to kind of like push that forward. But I can tell you that Toby did not intend for that. That was not an aim, but I think was a kind of happy accident.
Okay, well, I've been sufficiently proven wrong on everything. I have definitely read that movie is an allegory for that. I guess the whatever movie trivia fact site I've heard was wrong. So yeah, because I've actually never seen the movie myself, and I have just read other people who have said, yeah, that movie is like about this or has this imagery to imply, the imagery in slaughterhouses. So there you go. Absolutely wrong on that for me. So
and I would agree. And I would agree. The imagery is there and it can lend itself to that kind of imagery. But I think it was something that Toby kind of saw, like people mentioned, and he kind of ran with it. But he himself, that was never the intention. Toby's work is always focused. If you look at his other films like Toolbox Murders and a number of others, his work always focuses on the outsider being pushed into the outsider becomes the villain. The person who is pushed to the fringes of society then turns around and lashes out at the society. That's always been his focus. It's always been about, because he always envisioned himself as an outsider. Like he was always kind of the odd man out. And so the frustration and the anxiety that caused him, his movies, the stories that he told, were a way to kind of like expel that and kind of like express that in that form and kind of deal with that. So he was always really, really big on, the community that built, and he loved filmmaking because there's no outsiders in filmmaking. When you're on a set, it's all one family, it's one crew. We're all working together for the same goal. And that's why he loved the industry so much. And he was such a staunch supporter of it. And it's why, but his films always focus on his own personal, or a kind of like a breath of his own personal anxieties, which I found really fascinating. He was a really, really interesting guy. It's a shame that he passed so soon, but that he passed so early in his life, but really, really good dude.
All right. Well, there you go. What do you think of that, Daniel?
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to imply that the movie was that Hooper intended that. I just mean that it sort of came like you just said, it sort of came about the way they were filming it, and that But to me, the movie is like a bunch of cows, chickens, and pigs got together and said, how can we convince humans? How can we let them know what we go through on a daily basis, 24/7, 365 days a year, and without, showing the actual footage, which is so gross from factory farms, right? But so how can we make so the movie gives you it's like 90 minutes of what it's like, what animals go through, what these animals go through all the time. And I just think it's brilliant how it can be seen as that. But I think the movie's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic horror film. Dan,
You're
you really
totally
should
right.
see it. And
Listen,
it's brilliant. It's one of the best. Absolutely.
Death of the author still applies here in terms of movie interpretation, right? If that thematically works, then it thematically works, even if it's not author's intention.
Right.
I still think that's a valid understanding of it. Again, I've never actually seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre myself, but from what I've heard, the imagery is could be equated to slaughterhouses and stuff that goes on factory farms. So if I don't know, I'd say it's still valid, even if the director didn't intend it that way. But maybe, I don't know, do you agree, JL?
I could say these happy accidents occur all the time. You make a choice in the moment, and in order to try and shore up something, like you'll be on set, and one day you'll have something completely planned out, and then all of a sudden it just simply doesn't work. Sam Raimi ran into this a lot with the Evil Dead, with the first movie with Evil Dead, is that they had everything planned out, all the makeup effects, all this good, and then they got out there and nothing worked. So it was kind of like, it was just absolute chaos. And then you just roll with that and you kind of figure out where it's going to, and from that, we now have the iconic idea of what a Deadite looks like. Like, it's solidified that in the popular culture, when really it's just kind of like everybody took that as Sam Raimi trying to separate himself from like classic zombies from, like Dawn of the Dead and, Night of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead. And Sam Raimi was breaking out from that and saying he wanted to create a whole new thing. It's like, no. Like the look of those actors was just a result of the makeup not working in that environment. When they were up there shooting in that cabin, it happens like that. These happy accidents that we can glom onto. It's like, wow, that really ran. And sometimes people will see things in the frame that the director doesn't see, or the actors don't pick up on. It'd be like, and it'll be the way a thing is framed, or the way people are situated, or the blocking that takes place, or something done in the set background. Sometimes your set producer or your art director will come and say, "Ooh, I like the idea of this," and they'll put this in the background, and other people will glom onto it when the director couldn't even be bothered to take notice. It's just like, it's just set dressing, but it speaks to other people, which is one of the reasons you've touched on. One of the reasons why I love the industry so much. I love visual media, because the little things that speak to the audience.
Well, Dan, can I talk about my conversation with Forrest?
I mean, sure. I mean, well, we do want to try to wrap things up here, I think, at this point, if only because we did get to talk about one topic here, and we still have some other callers on the line. So maybe next week, if you want to call in, or at a different time, we can talk about that, because I think we did spend a pretty good portion of our time here. But thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate you calling in. And I'm glad we talked about something else besides aliens this time, because that's what we usually talk about. But not that I don't like talking about it. It's just, a change of pace is cool too. So yeah, definitely. Next time, let's talk about Forrest and your conversation with him. I'd be curious to hear that, because I definitely haven't heard it yet. So that would be cool to know. But yeah, that was obviously great film analysis from J.L. Warren. He's got a whole podcast about that stuff. So go check that out. But yeah, I guess I have to go see that movie now. So
you should.
Like all of my comments are going to be, wow.
You think about where you are. Come on.
I know I am in Texas. Yeah, it is a whole thing. Okay, I think this might surprise people. I've never been a big horror guy. Never in my whole life. I'm dating someone who's very much into horror, and so we have to find a compromise somewhere. So we do eventually like find some stuff that works for me, but it's not my favorite. It's not my genre. I don't know.
You sound like one of those dudes who say you sound like one of those dudes who in his childhood saw like, The Adventures of Mark Twain or like, Gremlins, which is like, this is just too much. I can't take it. I can't take it.
No. It's not that it's too much. It's the opposite. I don't feel like I'm emotionally affected as in horror as I think is what is intended for a lot. And I felt this way, by the way, before I was a deconstructing, pretentious atheist, right? Yeah, I think it's always just kind of been not my scene. I don't know. I don't get a lot out of it compared to other kinds of films, but I respect it because there's a lot of interesting and creative people that do horror. But at the same time, and you would agree with me with this, JL, horror is also an extremely exploitative genre that has a lot of crap, right? Like there's a lot of bad horror movies. Wouldn't you say?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
there are a lot.
Maybe more so than most genres of film.
Yeah, well, it's the easiest one to make a movie in, and you can make because fear is so ubiquitous in humans. Because fear kind of unites us all. We're all afraid of something down there kind of like tickles that fear bone, and so you can do a story on pretty much anything and make it scary as long as you hit on those elements, and someone will be there that will find it frightening or find it engaging in some way. So it's the cheapest way to make a movie, the cheapest way to tell a story, and you can pretty much put it on any streaming service and just get it out there. So that has led to a Nowakian deluge of really, really terrible films that that are just all over the place. You can check Tubi or any of the other ones where it's just there's a lot, but there are some good ones out there, and that's why I love it, because it's a genre that blends into all other genres so easily. Romance, comedy, sci-fi, Western. There are Western horror films out there. They're just magnificent. So I love that for how malleable it is, and that it just kind of touches. Everybody's got that one thing, that one subgenre that kind of I think subjectively, Dan, I think you simply haven't found your subgenre yet.
Oh, maybe you're right. Well, no, I like other things. It's not like I don't like movies. I don't know. I think you know what it is. I think horror is like I think there's just so much. I think maybe if I just watch the good ones, I think I would like those. But I think I've just seen my fair share of just bad ones where it's just like if a horror movie release comes out, I don't know if I'm as interested in it, right? I've seen most of the Saw movies. I haven't seen the new one actually. I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are good. I've enjoyed some of the Saws, like the first two. I think the other ones are not as good. But anyway, we're getting really off topic here, but I'm kind of okay with it because I feel like horror fans and Truth Wanted fans are like a pretty close Venn diagram for some reason.
If you talk about aliens that much, absolutely, we
do talk about the supernatural and aliens. So yeah, I think it vibes. I think it checks out. But we do have some other callers that want to talk to us. So let's see if we can get to everybody tonight. Next, I want to talk to Dan, who is calling in from Canada. We got a couple Canada folks tonight. Dan, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Sorry you're infested with Canucks.
That's okay. I'm happy to be infested. If I could choose my infestation, Canadians would be up there for sure.
It is the most polite infestation possible.
Well, I was curious as to what your guys' take on well-documented and still unexplained events would be, and if any of them lend credence to the appropriate spooky subset of things.
Can you give an example?
Absolutely. So, keeping it Canadian, the Shag Harbour incident was a UFO incident where multiple people documented what was originally thought to be a plane going down into the ocean. Multiple agencies, Navy, Coast Guard, etc., all searched, came up empty, and the FAA didn't record any missing aircraft on the East Coast. So, not Canadian or American aircraft.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at this one. I try to know, like, I don't know. I know about a lot of famous historical UFO stuff. I try to keep up with it because I know eventually people are going to ask me on the show about, oh, what do you think about XYZ? This is one I'm not familiar with, like, at all. So I'm just briefly scanning the Wikipedia article here. It seems like what you're telling me lines up with what's here. And yeah, that's kind of crazy. I don't know. I think when it comes to stuff like this, we talked about this a little bit last week, but I have to fall on the null hypothesis first, right? Which is that I have to assume there's no connection first, rather than there must be a connection in causal events. And in general, I think that principle can lead you to better reasoning, because you find out that human beings are pattern-seeking monsters that we are, and we just want to make connections out of everything. And so because of that, there's a lot of weird ideas out there that are oftentimes not true. Aliens, at least aliens being around Earth and doing stuff and taking people or doing whatever, might be one of them. In fact, I do think it is one of them. So this is definitely an unexplained event. I don't know if the proposed solutions are the most likely. There might be some stuff we just will never know, but I don't know. I don't know if it would convince me. What do you think, JL? What do you think would convince you?
So I got to go with you on that. I got to agree with you. I'd start with the null hypothesis. And try to dig into it as much as you can, and determine what information is reliable. It's okay. So I wasn't familiar with this one, with the Shag Harbour incident over off Nova Scotia. Another one that kind of gets me kind of in the same vein as you is the Rendlesham Forest incident. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Dan.
I am.
Okay, so
British soldiers came across. Well, U.S. soldiers on a British base.
Right. So because that one was never fully explained as well. And there's a lot of really, really weird evidence that's attached to that. Now, does that make me believe, despite, the weird evidence and the reports that came out and the witnesses that were supposedly there, does that make me believe that aliens came down here and landed on this planet? No, because there's a number of other things of terrestrial explanations that we have to eliminate before we can go into the territory and say that it is likely possible that a spacefaring race that has literally either conquered physics or conquered biology itself has made its way to this planet to visit us. So that's where you got to go without diving. And then, if you try to get around that, you're going to go into huge conspiracy tunnels like, oh, but they're already here. They're in the center of the earth. And it just gets kind of wildly out of control. So I would say we start with what we know and what we know can be possible. And when we have governments that are fully capable of losing nuclear weapons, like over off the coast of South Carolina, and not tell anybody about it until way later. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we lost a nuke over there. That was really bad. And they didn't, when stuff like that happens, you have to say that, yeah, likely something did occur. People at Shag Harbour did have an experience. They saw something. The question is, are they interpreting what they saw correctly? That's the key. And so we got to start from that one. So it would take something really extreme, extreme claims require that extreme evidence. And it would take something really heavy. We're talking Independence Day style, through the clouds, here they come, that kind of thing too. It's for me to go, oh, okay, so aliens do in fact exist. So, but yeah. The bigger the claim, the more extreme the claim, the more extreme the evidence, to kind of paraphrase, to butcher Carl Sagan there. So
I think you're absolutely right, Joe. It really boils down to okay, do we have real positive proof on this, or do we have a lot of circumstantial evidence? You know what I mean? With aliens, it's a lot of circumstantial stuff. Now, granted, stuff like probably Shag Harbour and other stuff, there is a lot of people that are really convinced that this is what happened. But we never have the smoking gun. We never have a ship. We never have a body of an alien. We never have any of the stuff that would absolutely, you'd be out of your mind to say is fake, or, makes that possibility become absolutely the case. Instead, it's always just sightings, or it's always just, questionable videos or photos. And if it's always going to be that way, I don't think I could ever believe that it's going to be aliens, because I really wouldn't have reason to,
And even within a kind of Independence Day scenario, there's still a lot of things you got to eliminate from there. It's kind of like there's so many variables in order to get down to like this most extreme thing, and given the level of it. And it was like, while I agree, I will say My position is the same. I can't remember who said it originally, but my position is that the mathematics of the universe virtually guarantee that we are not alone. But those same mathematics virtually guarantee that we will never meet them. So that's kind of in the position that
interdimensional beings,
unless they're, I mean, you could go a number of ways, or they've conquered biology. They've conquered their own biology, or they've conquered physics in and of itself. Basically, meaning that they know an aspect of physics that we don't have access to, and so they've done things with it. They found ways to utilize physics in a way that is beyond our comprehension. So
it's still possible.
Yeah. So in that respect, given that, like I said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I got to rest on that. Be like, we can't make these giant leaps until we have something substantial to stand on. Otherwise, like Mario, we're just gonna boop and doop, and that's gonna be it. To do a little game.
I mean, that's a very fair place to be. I'm just looking at U.S. government coming out with unidentified footage of aerial craft and unexplained events, and I'm just wondering if it's worth keeping the idea and not just dismissing it at first blush.
Agreed.
Well, when David Grush can actually show us a UFO instead of just saying he's seen UFOs, then yeah, right? Like, don't even get me started on the whole UAP Congress stuff. But yeah, I know, I totally get it. Should it be a possibility within our minds? Yeah, I think it should remain a possibility. But there's a difference between possibility and most likely, right? And so far, I have yet to encounter any event I've ever read about, anything that remotely comes close to an experience of extraterrestrial in origins as being like that being the most likely thing happening in that, right? Like, even with all the most recent stuff, it's still very circumstantial. The Congress stuff, they didn't even show anything. It was just eyewitness testimony. They said that they would have special counsel afterwards and have these talks and stuff and show, but so far that hasn't publicly come out. Only select footage and, of course, the testimony of people, which is still questionable, but anyway, that's my take. Dan, what do you think?
Which Dan?
Well, if I'm the one saying that's my take, Dan, what do you think? I think that means you.
Sorry.
You're good.
Hard to keep voices straight.
No, I know that's what happened, but I just thought it'd be funny to say that. Anyway, go ahead, Dan.
No, I mean, you're right. Probably something much more terrestrial crashed to the Earth. But with keeping an open mind these days, I'm not willing to rule out it couldn't have been an engineered craft from an outside source.
No. But part of keeping an open mind is considering the other natural possibilities too, right? Yeah. Or more, shall we say, worldly understandings.
That's the thing that gets kind of hairy. Is like, yes, is it logically possible? Like, is it an event that could happen? Certainly, a life form somewhere else traveling to another planet. We are life forms. We've traveled to we've traveled or sent things to other planets, to other planets, to the moon. So we know that this is a logical possibility. The logical possibility says nothing to the probability of it. So the probability, but given the mathematics of the universe, that probability is extraordinarily low almost to the point of almost inconceivable. But you never know. But like I said, we don't have access to all the information, so we have to kind of like take it, really, really take it with a grain of salt. Like, people in Congress saying things is people in Congress saying things. People in Congress say lots of things. Whether they do something or present something is a different story altogether. And so, yeah. So when I see an alien craft, or one comes out of the sky, or all of a sudden I wake up and I'm on the ship on the table and they're looking at me with that probe, then I'll know what's up.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I just hope something interesting happens without the end of the world.
I gotcha.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to add there? I'm going to call you Canadan. That way we can get ourselves different. But I feel like we talked a lot there. I just want to make sure you didn't have anything else you wanted to add on that conversation.
Not too much. I just, for my own reasons, am keeping some of the more fun things in mind as possibilities these days.
Okay.
But yeah, there are a few truly unexplained events that I've found interesting, and they keep the hope of a weird explanation alive.
Okay. All right. Well, don't do a God of the Gaps, but with aliens is my only advice. Okay. Right. Don't let maybe possibly it could be turn into it is this, right? Like, that's all I got to say on that.
I recognize I'm with you right there. Canadan, I'm right with you there. There is a kind of a joy in the possibility and a joy in the not knowing. And then it's been my experience, oftentimes, more often than I would like my experience, that when the explanation comes out, it's like a magic trick. It's like, once it's explained to you, it's kind of like, bummer. It's like, it's so simple, or it's like so obvious once you know. And then sometimes it's more fun to not know and to kind of like conduit, because that's where our storytelling comes from. That's where our legends come from. And so whether it's the Rendlesham Forest incident or the Chicago O'Hare incident or the nuclear test facility incident, there's so many that you could shake a stick at. But the question then remains, like, what actually happened? And so whether it's, but like I said, I agree with I almost called you Jamie, Dan. Sorry about that. But I agree with Dan here in that don't jump to the gaps argument. Don't jump to aliens because aliens can't be eliminated. Just because you really, really want them to be true. I understand the joy that comes out of it. I do. But keep that reined in.
Gotcha. All right, Dan, I do have to let you go because we are running out of time on this show. But thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate your input. And maybe next time you can tell me about some other fun and crazy things that you got kept away from this conversation because you thought it would be too real. All right. I think I can handle it. All right. But regardless, we are getting towards the end, but we do have one other caller that I think is going to be a really good call. So I'm going to jump and take a hunch and talk to James here. James, you're live on Truth Wanted. We don't have all the time in the world because we are kind of at the tail end of the show, but I think your topic is worth talking about, at least if the call screener is describing it accurately, which I think they usually do. So please talk to me, James. What's going on?
Hey there. I actually have a little caveat to what was just said. I had to do a Freedom of Information Act report one time. I used to be command post over in 20th Air Force. And anyway, so we had a site they were doing a test on, and it was just basically like throwing lightning at it. And then we had an error that came up, and it was like a 25-cent piece part after we were done. And a couple weeks later, they're like, oh, we got a Freedom of Information Act. Somebody wants to talk about aliens. It was 2 weeks of draining reporting.
Yeah.
It was
believe
just
it.
like you really didn't want to know the real answer, and it was just a 25-cent piece.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. That's got to be some people's weeks.
It's amazing,
man.
I grew some gray hair that 2 weeks. I'll tell you that.
I believe it. Anyway, all right, James, tell me what you really wanted to talk about today. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So, this is an interesting story. So, in quite a bit of it, I just learned, and I've been married for over 20 years, and this is my wife's side of the family. They're, Southern Louisiana sort of people, and anyway, so her aunt, she's called her aunt for her whole life, but in reality, it was her grandmother. So it was one of those situations. So her father was her I guess her child, but he was raised as her brother because her mom was so young, per se. Well, his mom was so young, her grandmother was so young. Well, she also had I guess he had a brother. I guess it would be like that. And both of those two were always at it. And they're really bad people, to be honest. They're quite bad people. And I just learned a lot about how bad they were. But we were at her funeral, and in the middle of the funeral, instead of talking about, I guess it came to a lull where they stopped talking about her. And because it was Southern Baptist, they're trying to convert us to a personal Jesus. And so I'm like thinking, hey, this is a Depeche Mode song. And and my wife is, because every time they would say something or like get something wrong in the Bible or something, and I graduated from a private Christian school and private Christian college. Then I got my master's degree from that college, got another master's degree from LSU, and quickly realized that if it doesn't walk like a talk like a duck, or don't have methodologies and research and proofs and different variations of proofs and what have you, and evidence, and the likelihood of it being a confidence is not appropriate. But anyway, so my wife's pinching me the whole time because I'm like, what the hell now? Well, her aunt, I guess her cousin, I don't know how that works. But anyway, she stood up and just declared that her brother was in league with Satan, and that was an explanation for all his bad activities, and basically kicked him out of the funeral service and that sort of thing. So I'm like, what the hell? And then why are we assigning this? And then at the same time, like, her whole side of the family was just, it was like they all believed it, like just right there. And I'm like, what am I watching? Like, and then my wife's pinching me the whole time to shut up and not say a word. So I'm going with the flow. And it just amazed me that even afterwards, like they walked the casket down, and they're still reiterating this stuff amongst themselves, and whispering it and talking about what have you. And then they finally put Betty into the ground, and I'm like, and they're still talking about it. And I'm like, how did these people reach to this idea? Just complete absence of any idea of truth, if you will. It was sort of like that mom mentality, if you will. But then we went to this church, because the ladies made us some food after the funeral and stuff. And I started asking questions like, hey, this is quite a large church, meaning as far as it was a complex. I was like, anybody go here? Turned out none of them went to that church. It was just a whole barrage of crazy. And then I was like, Rachel, we got to get the hell out of here. I kiss and hug your family, but this is nuts. We're flying back to Wisconsin. We're not.
Oh man,
this whole story sounds like Trading Spouses meets The Hills Have Eyes. I swear. Keep see if you can get to the meat of it, bud.
Well, that's pretty much it. Is just even the idea of how does this even, like, that they just went through this and just accepted this, and I was just like, all of them, and they're still talking about it, and they're texting each other, and I'm like, I want nothing to do with this. But
cultural Christianity is a hell of a drug, right? Like if that's your culture and that's what you grew up with, and that's your interpretation of the world, you're raised to be inflexibly uncurious about the rest of the world, how it operates, other explanations for things, etc. Right? What does Satan is ruling the world? What does that mean to like the average like Japanese person, for example? Like the people who have like no concept of Christianity whatsoever, right? It just sounds absolutely bonkers. Like it's just something that has always existed within the culture of particularly Southern Louisiana, in other places. And so like it just becomes the accepted cultural norm, right? Like I can't imagine if we grew up in like the 1700s, what kinds of even more bizarre and crazy stuff. I mean, we'd be talking about witches and stuff. Well, there's people that still talk about witches to be fair today.
Well,
and also people on
do,
TikTok that make cool like potions and stuff. But besides that, right, it's just like, yeah, you grew up there, you live there, and you don't explore other options, and that's the result. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live that kind of life. So sounds like you don't either, James.
No. We moved to Wisconsin, so but I still can't get over it. I just can't. It's just a divorce of reality, and
it is.
And they all just hook, line, and sinker. And I just like I even Googled it, and of course I saw Matt D's stuff, and then I was like, what in the world, as far as Satanists? And I'm like, yeah, why would you, if you don't believe in one, why would you believe in the other? If you have no concept of one, I mean, because one's, I guess, antagonist, the other's protagonist, if you will. I don't know. But yeah, and they were hook, line, sinker into it, and looking at me like, why am I not, going harump, I guess.
Echo chambers don't just exist on the internet. They're a result of groups of people getting together and being insulated from external critique. And so common ideas get spread around. There's no one there to challenge them. There's no incentive given for members of the group to challenge those things. And so once you get a few generations down the line, these things become solidified. They become cultural to these small groups. And then, we see this not just on the internet, but we see, you can see it in small towns. The state that I live in, a state that I live in is ripe with small little towns that are so entrenched in their various beliefs. And you could drive 15 minutes to the next one and they believe something completely different, but just as ardently. So it just, that's what you get, that kind of like those small little microcosms of belief. And I think you kind of like dipped your toe into one and then quickly was like, nope. And then and scurried to like the other side of the country.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you, James. Thanks for telling that story at the tail end of the show here. We are going to ramp things up right about now. But that was a good tale in reminding us that, even though we talk about this stuff, I mean, literally every week for me, pretty much. There's definitely people out there that are just on the complete opposite side of the belief spectrum, just living their lives. And you kind of wonder why. I don't know, man. It's a lot of things, but none of them are good. But anyway, I want to thank our special guest today, J.L. Warren, coming back on Truth Wanted. J.L., thank you so much for joining us again. If people want to find out where you're at and how to get in touch with your stuff, where should they go?
You can check me out on YouTube at youtube.com/JLWarren or at JL Warren, where I release content as often as I can there. You can follow me on the socials as well. I'm on, unfortunately, I'm on X. I'm on Facebook as well. Those links are all on my channel, so you can check this out. And if you dig scary movies, you can check out me and my filmmaker friends over at the Week in Horror podcast. Our live shows are every single Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. And of course, if you listen on podcasts, every Sunday is when we go live at the top of the week, so we can talk about those movies. But yeah, whether you dig atheist content, so sociology, science, content, or you like scary movies, or maybe a blend of the two, you can check me out at those channels at Week in Horror or at JL Warren.
Awesome. And of course, I also need to thank our wonderful, awesome Kelly, who was hanging out behind the scenes as our backup host today. He is not here at the moment because he already went to the ACD fan Discord server, which you should check out too if you want to go to the Discord after show that is going to be happening right after this. It is not recorded anywhere. It's just exclusive for people who are there in the moment. So come on down unless you're going to miss out at tiny.cc/ACD Discord and hang out and see what happens. So just remind folks for the prompt this week, it's what's your unpopular opinion? Comment on this video and we may read it next week. And please be sure to like and subscribe and do all the fun things that YouTubers tell you to do, because it really does help with making the channel grow.
Mm.
So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on Truth Wanted. I have been your host, Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep on the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.